Welcome to Status Secure, the weekly cyber threat briefing for executives who refuse to operate in the blind. Hosted by the Watcher 6 Collective, uniting former Army Special Forces and Naval Special Warfare Communications operators, alongside an industry-leading CISO nominated for Cybersecurity Woman of the World. We cut through the noise and give you the operational intelligence you need for mission success in a hostile digital environment. The enemy is listening. Is your status secure? Welcome to Status Secure. Today we're talking to the disruptors, the coders, the startup founders who move fast and break things. However, in 2026, if you break the wrong thing, you don't just lose a user, you lose the company. So in the tech sector, speed is life. We want to ship features, fix bugs, and deploy 5 times a day. And there's a podcast I listened to recently. Actually, I've been listening to it since 2015. It's called Startups for the Rest of Us. The host, Rob Walling, is the tech founder of the platform Drip, which was an email marketing platform, which was eventually bought out by Lead Pages. And now he runs an accelerator program called Tiny Seed, where they advise, mentor, and invest in bootstrap startups. And he gave advice on a recent episode, which was number 808, where there was a question asked about SOC 2 compliance. And his advice is probably similar across maybe some of the venture field, which would be, let's focus on the product. Let's focus on sales and marketing, right? Let's go, let's grow, let's get customers. And really we don't really think about compliance certificates, essentially, right? But if you listen to the full episode and you listen to the rest of his statement in context, he caveats that by saying, however, if you're a startup company, a tech startup serving enterprise clients, especially in industries like finance, you have to account for compliance and security. So think SOC 2, for example, which can feel like putting your foot on the brake pedal if you're in that startup world. So CISO, be honest with me. Even though it might feel like you're slowing down, does security really kill velocity? Or in other words, can we just get to it later?
I mean, if you patch it later, you create security debt. It's like building a skyscraper and deciding to check the concrete foundation after you built the 50th floor. To fix it then, you have to tear the whole building down. And any construction company worthwhile does not do that. And you can see it. You can see, I don't know if you're familiar with the building in San Francisco that is leaning, right?
Yeah.
So,
Isn't that the one that was Joe Montana had a suite in or something like that, right?
Yes. And it's leaning because they didn't architect it well. Right? They didn't plan for the foundation well. And so now it's leaning and it's costing millions and millions of dollars, and they're trying to figure out how to fix it. So it's, they're paying later, and they're paying a lot because it's taking a long time. It's been leaning for quite some time now, and people aren't wanting to, they're selling or they're not buying, or they're, it's costing them a lot. Right? So that's a prime example of waiting until later and not getting your foundation right. So the new reality, move fast and break things, worked for Facebook in 2004. It doesn't work today because it will break user trust or violate privacy laws, like GDPR or CCPA in California, and the regulators will break you. However, with AI, you should be able to move fast without breaking things. The era of the Wild West development is over because the sheriff has been hired, but he's only as good as the folks allow him to be. So remember the Wild Wild West? If you remember, there was the Homestead Act. So the government said, go find land, make it your own, create, there's plenty of opportunity. So a lot of folks moved out and found their land, built their farms, had their cattle. And then what happened? The bad people came, started stealing cattle, started coming and just stealing land from people. And then what happened? Then you had to bring the law in, right? The sheriffs started coming, but the sheriffs of those towns were only as good as the people. So it's the same thing. We're no longer, the beginnings of Homestead. We're now at bad people, bad actors, and the sheriff has to come in. But you don't want to do that afterwards. People have already lost their land. People have already lost their cattle and their livestock and their livelihood. So if you could bring in the sheriff first and then have the homesteaders, right? Hindsight's 2020. That would have been better. That would have saved those people a lot of heartache and a lot of financial suffering. So same thing here, with AI, just tell AI to build it code with security in mind. Tell it that OWASP top 10 needs to be included in their development, in their code, and it will do it. So do it in the beginning, not not when your code starts to lean later.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier too, looking at the industry you're in and what makes sense for your startup, right? And it's in your example you gave, it reminded me of another, actually same, startups for the rest of us, another episode of theirs where somebody asked a question about, can I build my startup out of AI, vibe coding, or, can AI build my code for me? And I love the example they gave, because the example they talked about was, that's like, hey, we can go build a shed in the backyard and it would be fine. But that's like AI vibe coding. But if you want me to go build the house and pour the concrete, put up the framing and the electrical and all this other stuff in the roof and whatnot, like, it's not going to happen. The house is going to fall apart because I'm not a contractor, right? And it was on that same thing of like, if you're going to build a real company in that space, then you need to develop the software properly. And, you can't vibe code that. And so taking that same sort of analogy, if you know your clients are enterprise clients, your clients are in the finance space, and you have a platform that they're using to make these, let's call it transactions, you probably need to have that security from the beginning. It's probably crucial to your platform and to actually, like, these clients actually using it. And so, okay, so let's say I have investors breathing down my neck and I need to show progress. I need to be moving, right? We're startups, we're moving fast. And I can't wait 2 weeks for a penetration test every time I want to release an update. So how do I move fast without being reckless?
Well, you shift left. Everybody talks about that, but now you can actually do it. You can do it quicker. You stop treating security as a gate and you treat it more as a guardrail. And you do it at the beginning. We call this shifting left. You don't need a human to check the code, every line of code anymore. You use automated tools, and they've been around. So it's tried and true. Use those automated tools in your pipeline. Okay? It's like spell check for security. The developer gets alerted while they are trying the code. I mean, there's so many tools. They've been around for a long time now, where you can't even compile if there's vulnerabilities in your code. Also with AI, you tell it to code it securely. So now, instead of having the developer write the code, then have the automated tools like checking while they're developing and while they're trying to compile, because now they got to go back and review their code and fix the vulnerability. But you start at the beginning with AI, you have it coded, you have it write the code for you with security with security. And then you have the developer review it really quickly because it's already written. And the tools, you have them there again as a guardrail. Now, when you run your automated tools to check, it won't find vulnerabilities and it will compile. And that's how you move faster. This actually increases velocity because you aren't spending your next sprint fixing bugs from the last sprint. You ship clean code the first time around. This actually speeds up delivery, your user, your customer satisfaction, and you can actually release more functionality versus trying to fix bugs.
Got it. So you're saying security is actually a quality control issue. It's bug squashing, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about revenue, because my sales team is telling me they can't close the deal with a big enterprise client because we don't have a security packet ready. And we ran into this recently where we have a client who we had a couple come through the door who were one of them. Let's put it in reality. They're going, I want to close these big clients. I have a big opportunity for my business and I'm growing, and this new echelon of my clientele, it's like a baseline requirement that I have, like SOC 2 type 2, right? It's like these security compliance certificates or what have you are almost like a gate for me to even do business. And they want to do business with me, but I can't, right? And so with that in mind, now we're thinking, is security also a product feature?
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, a vulnerability is just a bug that hurts people, right? So if you wouldn't ship an application that has a user button, and that user button, when they click it, doesn't work, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't ship that to a client, right? To a customer. So why would you ship, a product that doesn't have a secure database connection, for example, right? Even though they can't see it. See, these are things that the user can't see, but they'll feel it. They'll experience it later in the form of breaches, of their data being exposed. So I remember when I was a developer, and to meet timelines, you have to de-scope. Project managers love using that to get projects back on schedule. So you start de-scoping, right? but you should never descope security. That should be one of your fundamental requirements in a project. So users can't see it, but they will feel it later. And so, from a project perspective, you should never compromise your security to meet timelines.
Got it. So let's give founders their marching orders, right? If a CTO is listening to this and let's say they know their code base is a bit of a mess of spaghetti and like strapped together with duct tape, like what's step one for them?
Well, if you want to sell to like Fortune 500, or the government or healthcare, you have to be able to pass a SOC 2. And that's like your foundation. That's your fundamentals. If you can't even do the baseline, how can you do anything else? That's what customers are thinking. And so if you want to swim in the big pool and you want to get out of the kiddie pool, you have to show that you can swim. Right? So that's basically what it is. But your marching orders, immediately what you can do is you can do an assessment. Do an assessment, find out where you are. Do a pen test, hire a ethical hacker to break into your app before the bad guys do, right? Use AI, because honestly, one big data breach, one security incident, and your company has a reputation now that nobody will want to work with, right? So start the SOC 2 journey now. You need to assess, even though you may not think that you're ready, or that a customer wants it, because I see a lot of startups. So what happens is they get a big client and the big client wants the SOC 2, and that's when they do it. But if you do it now before a client wants it, you can actually use that to advertise, to market, to put, some like RFPs require that you have a SOC 2, right? Some big clients require that you have a SOC 2. So just go ahead and do it now. At least now, if you do it and you don't, and you have what's called a qualified report, which means you didn't pass, you can fix it. And it's still good because you don't have to give this to anybody yet. It's just for yourself.
That's great advice. And something it reminds me of in the venture space, you'll hear this, especially with young startups, young founders, or that's just them at the time. And maybe they don't have a product built, or they're not selling anything, and they'll be out there asking for money. Give me money, give me money, give me money. And this is kind of this advice you'll hear a lot is ask for money when you don't need it, right? Let's say you got the product built and you've started getting customers and you have revenue coming in and you may not actually need the money. That's the time to go get the money, right? Because I guess it feels maybe backwards in our minds, but people aren't going to want to give you money if you aren't making money, or maybe I should say they're not going to feel as inclined to. But if you're showing growth, like you're showing velocity and speed, and then you come in and say, I'm making money, I'm generating users, right? I'm building. Now's a good time to ask for money. But if you come in and you say, I've been losing users, I'm losing revenue, my bank accounts are depleted, like things aren't looking good. Now can you give me money? Right? It's like you're too late. I'm not as excited now. I'm not motivated as I would have been if you would have come to me this time last year where you were crushing it and where the money could have helped you not fall into that downward, slump, right? And that's what this sounds like. It's like when you need SOC 2 because you had the client of your dreams show up and you're like, yes, this is it, right? This is perfect. This is what we want. This is what we need. And then they say, oh yeah, you need to do this thing that might take you 3, depending on what it is, 6, 12 months. That's a killer. Like that sucks. And then you got to sit there and you got to hold off on that opportunity to get that done when you're in the space, you're going to get those kind of clients. So let's get it ahead of time when you don't need it, right? So then when the opportunity is there, you can move fast. So velocity does matter, but direction matters more, right? So we want to build it fast. We want to build it secure. Mission success is about sustainability, right? And so on that note, that's it for today's episode, and we'll see you guys next week. Mission success isn't about luck. It's about preparation. You've heard the intel. Now, go put it to use. If you need to verify your security posture, I've established a secure line at watcher6.com/secure. Go there to get the briefing the enemy doesn't want you to have. We'll see you next week.